Sorry, my kids are here as well. Apologies. What I've done here is I've gone on to my GitHub and I've created a new repository here. And so I'll just pop the link in the chat now for the repository. So if you know what you're doing on GitHub, you can go over and you can fork it, or you can just get a copy. You can download a copy of what I have on my GitHub, and I will keep adding to it as we go through tonight, and you'll kind of see. But what I've done is, because it's my GitHub, I can very easily go file, new project, and then when I go new project, I get a few options. If you go version control git, and then you just dump the URL like that and tell it where you want it to save the location on your computer, and go open a new session. And what that does is it literally creates this empty project that you can see in front of you. So it's only got a README file, and other than that, it's totally blank. So at the moment, I've just added a little bit more into this README, and then in using, you can use all click menu if you want, or you can use the terminal. But using the click menu, you just select that this has been modified and that you want to commit your modification because you like what you've done. And I've added some details. This is just for future me to know what on earth I was doing. And that's what people call a local commit. And I think when this is just kind of introducing these concepts, right? And the more you see it, the more you understand what it's actually doing. So I won't focus too much about it on today. But then if I just push, that actually pushes the change that I've made on my computer up to there. It's gone up to here. So if I hit refresh, you can see I've just updated that and put the date there. So GitHub's a really cool way to be able to work with different people. Or if you're terrified you're going to spill your coffee on your machine, or your machine's going to die on you, it's a great way to have everything backed up in the cloud on GitHub. So yeah, so we're going to talk today about gtsummary, which is one of my favorite packages, and I use it almost every day. So if you go library gtsummary, that's how you pull it down. There was a new version earlier this year that's got some cool changes. And then I'm also going to pull in tidyverse and Palmer penguins. So Palmer penguins is a really cool data set with some penguins in it. So I thought that's what I would base today's data on. So I'm just going to pull those packages into my session. All right. And just so, oh, and the other thing is I've actually gone and downloaded Copilot. So because I'm from Sydney University, I have access through GitHub Education to Copilot. So you might see it like recommending stuff at times. Most of the time it's useful, sometimes it's not useful and it's not what I want to do. But if you are copying and pasting things, Copilot is really useful because it immediately sees what you're doing and you don't have to copy and paste so much because it recommends all these things to you, which is very smart of it. What I'm going to do first of all is I am going to load my data. So if we go glimpse penguins, that will enable you to see the penguins data set. And if you want to play along at home and do this with me, that's fine. Otherwise, if you just want to have a watch, and then I'll push all the code up to GitHub and you can grab it all later. So you can see this penguins data set has 344 rows. It has 8 columns, and these are the columns, the type of column, and then an example of the data that's in that column. So one thing that you might want to do immediately is go and do a ggplot and have a look at what your data is. The next thing you're probably going to want to do is to do some summary statistics. And so everybody would probably go and do summary penguins. Right. And you would get some quick summary of what's going on in your data set. But that is definitely not publication ready. And so for those of us who need to share reports with other people who are actually writing, presentations or papers, we need some way of being able to obtain really nice, pretty tables fast. And that is exactly what gtsummary is amazing at doing. So if I want to create a table. Thank you for recommending that. What we could do is we could just go TBL summary penguins. And so gtsummary, all of its functions predominantly start with TBL underscore, and it's going to create as a table. So TBL summary is the very stock standard function that I use quite a lot. So if we just do a TBL summary of penguins, like how summary function works, it takes each of the variables and does a summary. So based on the type of data it is, whether it's categorical or not, it will provide a different summary. So for the categorical species data, it's gone and done some counts and percentages. It's also done some, this is, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, it's median interquartile range for the continuous data. And it's also told us if there's any unknown values, which is very helpful. So immediately we have this very reasonable looking table. But you can see it's actually in the viewer pane. And that's because TBL summary is really designed to work well with RMD summaries. So the other thing that I'm going to do today is I'm going to pretend that we are doing an R Markdown report and we're trying to send some data off or a report off to somebody. So if you just go in and go new RMD file and go Word and hit OK, it will give you this kind of random template thingy. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete out most of this stuff. And I'm going to say PBL under summary. And I'm going to go, I don't want to keep my code. I don't want to show my code in my report. I want it to be in my RMD file where my code lives, but I don't want to necessarily be providing it to somebody else. So I changed that echo to false. And then I'm just going to go and grab this stuff and dump it in here. And then what I like to do is I like to put my packages in my setup chunk up the top here, and I also tend to load my data. So if you're working with a package data, you can just go penguins, load penguins. Okay, so now what you can, if you hit knit on this, it will ask you to call it something because it doesn't like to knit an unsaved file. And I will call this report and I will save it. And it will render me a report in a moment in Word. And it didn't like my file argument. I wonder what I did. Render, bad file argument. Okay. There we go. This is something I was playing with earlier. Okay. So here is our very basic table now in a Word document that we can easily share with people. So it's pretty good. It's not great, but there's actually a lot of customization that we can do very quickly. And so there's the rendering it version, which you're looking at now, which is in Word. And then there's also the work that we can do just in R before we actually hit render. So sometimes it's nice to render the document, make sure it's coming through the way that we want it to come through. And that helps us identify, oh, look, this table doesn't have a table number at the top, and I want to give it a table number, and I don't want this silly R message here. Why is it telling me this thing? And I don't want it to be called bill depth millimeters, etc. I'm going to put nicer labels on. So I'm going to close that. And I'm going to show you what I typically do when I use TBL summary, is I actually grab the data set and I pipe into a select function, and I will select a few variables that I want to summarize, because normally the data sets I'm working with are really, really big, and I don't actually want to summarize all 800 columns. I only want to summarize what I want to summarize. So TBL summary works really nicely with piping. So if we just select a few columns, and then if I hit run in my RMD file, it will render that little version for me. And then I'll go, oh, actually, I want the bill length millimeters to have a better day. Oh, actually, before I go and do that, I'm going to show you what I work in clinical trials. So normally I'm always summarizing things by treatment or by a variable. So, oh, look, it's already knows what I'm going to do because I use it so much. So if I go by, I might just go by gender. I've immediately got a table by gender. So it's given me the summary statistics, and these are the column percents as well, within females and within males. So we can easily compare across and go, oh, look, they're pretty balanced in terms of females and males. That's interesting to know. Yeah, go ahead.
With the what are they? The numerical variables. What statistics is it providing you? Does it tell you on
so at the moment
table?
it's providing us automatically with the median and interquartile range. But interesting you should say that. We can easily change that with the statistic function. We can change it to be a mean and standard deviation. Oh, whoops, I think I've not got enough color. Is that 1, 2? Yeah. Oh, I have misspelt statistic. There we go. So if we render this, it will change all of the continuous ones to be plus minus, and this is a very specific. It's not liking that. I'll change it to. And if you have a journal that you're actually specifically rendering to, like JAMA or something, there's actually a whole lot of templates that you can use that are already built in, which is really cool. Did I hit? What did I hit? Yep, that's worked now. So it's mean and standard deviation. But say you're working with data and you're not quite at that stage of knowing exactly whether you want the mean and standard deviation or you want the minimum and maximum as well. You can actually use this type. And there's also these really cool helper functions that Daniel I think it's Soberg. I think that's how you say it. He's the guy that's the primary builder of this. There's got a whole lot of people that have helped him, but he's very responsive on Twitter and GitHub, etc. if you ever want to reach out to him, and Stats Exchange as well. So he's written all these really cool helper functions, like all continuous and all categorical and everything as well. So if you want to change all, that doesn't make sense for everything to be continuous, but we can change all of the continuous things to be, it's called continuous 2. No, don't like that recommendation. I want continuous 2. What continuous 2 means is that you can have multi-row summaries. So what we can do now is we add a C at the front here and another bracket, and then separating them out into little sections. we can use, I think it's nomius and min to max. I close enough brackets. Yes, I have. Okay, check if that works. Okay, it didn't like that. I must have done something wrong. I will go and have a look at my help. So all of the summary statistics, and the help's really useful. It's got lots of examples down the bottom, but the summary statistics, here we go. No miss.
Non-miss.
Oh, non-miss.
So
Thank
close.
you.
So close.
So where was I? Non-miss, because that makes sense. So now if I render that, oh, did I put it in curly brackets? No, another problem. Curly brackets. There we go. Okay. All right. There we go. So now we've got, for our continuous guys, we've got multi-line summaries, which is awesome. But I want to change my names of my variables because I don't like those names. So I use label. And that is a silly recommendation, silly Copilot. It shouldn't do that. It's going to want a list of what we want to change. And so, yes, species to species is a great idea. I'll do that. And then the bill length in the millimeters, yes, that's a good idea, Copilot. I will take that option. So less options of spelling wrong as well when I use Copilot. So you can see, you can kind of work on making things prettier. You can also get rid of where has it gone? Oh, it's dropped it now from the continuous one. And I don't think any of the species are missing, so it's dropped that. But yeah, that missing row that we saw earlier when I did the whole thing, that will you can get rid of it, or you can change what it's called. Like it says, I think it says unknown. You can change it to say missing or whatever other name you want it to call, etc. This package also plays really nicely with the labeled package, if anybody's used that. If you've used the label package to label all your columns and your levels, for those of us that came from SPS land at one point, that will all come through in everything that you do in gtsummary. So if I'm going to just quickly, in order to get a table heading, you saw there was that error that you're not error, there was a warning in the Word document saying you should send it off to be a GT table. GT is one of the possible options, but what plays really nicely with Word, I've found over the years, is flex table. So if you send your TBL summary into a flex table object, then you can use the set caption option to set a column, a table name for your table, and then it didn't like because I haven't called in the package yet. There we go. So when you render a document, if you've never done it before, it needs it to be wholly self-contained. So if you use a data set that you haven't created in the markdown, it doesn't know about it. So it will have a little cry at you. So there we go. Now we've got our little table heading at the top for our table, and we've changed the bill length label, and we've got 3 lines now for our continuous variables, and it's dropped that little footnote telling you what it was, because now we've got multiple lines and it's explaining what they are. So it's like, I don't need to do that anymore. So Oh, there's a whole lot of chat stuff going on. I'm not sure. Please just interrupt me if you want to talk to me. That is fine. Does anyone want to?
There's a question about Copilot, I think.
Yes, it is GitHub Copilot. And if you have a university email address that you have linked to your GitHub account, you can get it for free. But you're not allowed to use it commercially, but I don't do anything commercial, so I'm fine there. And if you're writing bits and pieces, sometimes it wants to know if you've used AI, so you just declare that you've used it. It's useful sometimes. Other times it tells you to use functions or libraries that don't actually exist. So treat everything with a grain of salt. Okay. So I'm going to, oh, you don't want to see that. I'm going to show you now that there's also these kind of add-on functions, I think he calls them, Daniel calls them. So you can go add overall. And if you do that, I'll just show you in a little demo. I haven't actually locally. There we go. Add overall adds an overall column to your table. So you can see it's added it at the start. You can move it around really easily. Just have a look at add overall. And it will tell you all of the stuff like where, last, false, true, if you wanted to change it, etc. And then the other really cool function is that you can go add P. And with that very simple command, you've added a whole bunch of p-values to your table. So that might be okay for you because you're happy to accept the analysis that's being performed here, but it's you can change it, but basically the default is the categorical data gets a Pearson chi-squared test, the continuous data gets a Wilcoxon rank sum, so a non-parametric test. That's just stock standard. You can very easily change it to a t-test, an over, etc., whatever you want it to be. It's just, you just have a look at question mark add P. So you can see it's very flexible and enables you to get a very pretty table quite quickly. So I also wanted to show the inline functions as well that you can use. So in order to use the inline function, I would actually need to save my table as something, and then I would just render it into the caption, into a table that's going to be output here. And so the purpose of saving the table as an object, and you'll see if you go and have a look at it in your environment, it's a really strange object. It's got a lot of weird things in it. There's a lot of help online that I'm going to link to at the end, though, to talk about some of this stuff. And I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty changing stuff, but there's all the functionality to change anything that you want to change is there. But as soon as we've saved it as an object, we can actually now in our Word document, we can reference things. So we might want to say something like in the Adelie species, there are, and then we use our little inline. I don't know if anybody's done this before, but I've done it a lot, but we use a little R function, and Daniel's written us some. It's not called inline print, it's called inline text. And we specify our table base, and we specify the variable that we want to talk about. So I'm going to choose, so I've done it by gender. So in the females, and I'm going to talk about how many are Adele species. So we say we want to talk about the species variable. That's what it's called, species. And the level that we want to talk about is, what does it look like again? I can't remember. Yeah, I need to go level equals
Sorry,
this.
Kristy, dumb question.
Yeah, no, go. No dumb
When
questions.
you reference the add overall, are you able to then reference it within the inline text like you're saying?
Yeah, you
To
are.
avoid the gender separation that you're using?
Yep, you can. So at the moment, now I'm about to go column equals female, right? But you could just change this to be column equals overall and it will spit out. And so what I'm doing here, I'm putting my cursor in here and I'm pressing Control Enter, and that will like show you what's going on. You can also use the visual code, but I don't actually like the visual code. Yeah, and you can see it's actually printed it down here as well. So it's telling you of the females, because it's column percentages, this many are this species. But again, yeah, if you wanted to know and overall, there are blah blah blah. And if you don't have if you haven't split it by gender, if it's just there's no by in that in up here, I'm pretty sure you don't even need to specify the column. It just gives you the overall one automatically.
The reason I was asking about it was if you have done that gender split as you've done here, would the overall part need you to declare a reference to the add overall part?
Yeah, you need to reference. Oh, it doesn't like overall. Okay. It's called stat 2. Don't ask me how I know, but I know the underlayings of this land. And it will be, unless it's put it as 0, let's check. Adele species.
One way to find out.
It should give me 7. No, okay, it's not 2. It must be 0. Must have labeled yeah, it's labeled them 0, 1, 2.
Yeah, left to right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, there's this inline text works with all the GT summary tables. So this is just this single table. The next thing I want to show, and I'm just going to render this because I'll show you what it looks like in Word.
Thanks for that. Don't want to hog it any more than I already am.
Oh no, that's fine.
Kristy, I have another.
The whole point is that this is useful for people. So if it's useful for you to ask a question, please do it.
I have a question, Kristy.
Go.
You're doing this in Markdown. Can you do that inline thing in Quarto as well?
Of course you can. I use Quarto as well. I just figured Word might be more useful for people at the moment. Yeah. And I'm also going to go while I'm here, because I don't like this. So for anybody who uses Word a lot, the Word version here, Word_document, is actually not very fun. It's not very nice. And I've got a better version that I use, which is by the same guy that does Flex Table. And I'm just going to grab the YAML for that. So it actually puts the office down package, and it's called rdocx_document. Has a lot of cool functions. One of the best ones is that you can actually change from landscape to portrait really, really easily. So I use it a lot, and it's the only Word rendering one that will. Quarto will not render a page to landscape and then a next page to portrait and then the next page to landscape. It won't do it. This is the only package that I found that does. Unless somebody can tell me differently, then please tell me. So if I render this document, and I just need to make sure that I've closed my other one, otherwise it cries at me and says it won't render because it's already opened. Okay, here we go. Open. Let's just going on to a different screen. Here we go. Okay. So now you'll see it says table 1, summary statistics. So it'll actually table reference, and you can cross-reference your tables as well using docx. So then in a whirlwind tour, because I just want to give you as much as I can get out of my brain at one time, the next one I'm going to show you is TVL regression. So this is the way to summarize an analysis table in 1 line of code if you want, or 2 lines if you want to go into a flex table and add a caption and blah, blah, blah. So if you want to run your LM, say for, the bill length in millimeters to species plus sex plus, that looks good, whatever. I'm not going to do this yet. I'll just load that. Load that out. Okay, let's show you what this looks like. So if you normally do your LM and then you probably go summary LM and then you get a whole lot of gobbledygook in Korean U and you need to somehow summarize that, this will be your new best friend. So the only thing that I don't like about this is that it automatically defaults to these p-values. I will always go and add my type 3 p-values. There's a super easy add function, add global p. That will go and add your global type 3 p-values and make life easier. Okay, so you can immediately see what your reference is. It's a beta coefficient because we're doing an LM model. If we were doing a logistic regression or something else, logistic regression would be odds ratio, of course. Binary regression will be relative risk, etc. So it's smart. It already kind of knows this stuff, and it gives you all of this quite easily. And then it plays with inner line summary as well, which is really cool. So like previously, there's a label if you want to change your labels. What I would normally do to my data set though is I'd use the labeled package once at the start and label everything and get it ready before I then come and do my report. So I wouldn't need to do my labels each time. So if you do want to include the table in your Word document though, you would then render to flex table and add a caption, giving some summaries. Okay, and I'll close that bracket off. And then we just need to add the tab.id thingy, table 1 with an equals. That is what gives the table its cross-referencing abilities. That's what the table is called if you wanted to cross-reference it in the text. Okay, so I'm going to save that and render this version. And then I've got a little list that I've written of things I wanted to show you. Okay, add P, add overall, the flex table stuff, the captions, merging tables together. So the natural progression of those 2 tables, and what I'm asked to do a lot, is to put the summary statistics on one side and to have the analysis summary on one side as well, so that it's all in one table. So the easiest, super easy, there's 2 things that you can use. You can use stack or you can use merge, and this is not restricted to 2 tables. You can create 100 and then you can stack them all so they're all on top of each other, if that makes sense. There's a lot of flexibility on how to work these together. but this is just a stock standard kind of easy example to start with, so you can see the power. So what we would maybe want to do is, we'll do table 2, and we might have a summary table like this, but I'm going to drop the p-value and the overall off so that it's just a summary table by gender. And I'm going to call that TBL1. And then I'm going to do my analysis table, the global p-values. So the important thing to know is that the TBL merge only works on the things that come out from TBL summary or TBL regression or something like that. As soon as you've gone as flex table, it's actually a different thing. It's a different object, and it's been reformatted in the environment if you were to save that object. So you need to make sure that it's before you do any of those other commands. So yes, this would be our TBL LM. So I'll run that one. And I'll run that one. And then I just go TBL merge. Oh, wrong place. TBL merge. And you just need to put all of the things that you want to merge into a list. So merge sticks them side by side, stack layers them top to bottom. So I'm going to drop that off first, and I'll just show you what this looks like in this pane over here. I run it in my... So it was automatically defaulted to giving us table 1 and table 2. And you can see only some of the things have come here because I didn't actually include a whole lot of things in my model, if that makes sense. So where it hasn't identified that bill depth is not in the model, so it doesn't get anything next to it with an effect size because it's not in the model. Flipper length is though, so it gets an effect size and a p-value. So it's smart and it's merging things appropriately, as you would hope. So that's, and then the other thing that you might want to do before you change it to a flex table is you just add a table spanner. Yeah, there we go. So if I run that, it just changes those table 1, table 2 to be something a little bit more interpretable. Summary statistics, regression model, coefficients, or whatever you want to call it. And then I would go and stick it to a flex table object and then add a caption to my table before I then spit it out in my Word document. Okay. Oh, we don't want to do any. Yeah, go ahead.
A question in the chat for you.
Yep.
If you use it in Quarto and your output is HTML, do you need flex table?
So Daniel has done us a very nice little table on how things play nicely with each other in, sorry, I've got too much stuff open. Let me find it and then I'll pull it over. So I'm going to link to this in a second. I'll throw these in the chat. Okay, so where's gtsummary? There we go. gtsummary. Oops, wrong button. Come back. Okay. So I'll dump this in the chat. So flex table will work with HTML, but it's not the prettiest option. The flex table is the prettiest option if you're doing Word. If you're doing HTML, I tend to use GT, or I will use Cable Extra. So you'll see here, he's put a nice little table for you to see where things are friendly and smiley and when things are no, don't work, or under development, or like meh, they'll work but they're not great, or they're really not that great but they'll work. So yeah, he's got a whole series of useful tutorials and articles here. TBL summary and TBL regression, working with Quarto Shiny or different themes. So I kind of alluded to that before. If you know what journal you're targeting, you can use their theme. He has a fabulous cheat sheet, and he also has FAQs, which is really, really useful. So the next thing I also wanted to throw at you, sorry, I created this before, some links. Okay, I'll just dump them in the chat for you. So the first one is a education blog that Daniel wrote on gtsummary a couple of years ago, but it's all still really relevant. It's kind of like a gentle introduction, kind of probably what I've gone over now, but it's all there in front of you. The YouTube is a talk that he gave on gtsummary and the GT package, which is also his. And then I've dumped some slides as well from different presentations that he has. And then, yeah, his gallery for his gtsummary articles, and then his FAQs. Oh, and he's also got if you go here and you go, yeah, the gallery, in the gallery, if I can find it, he's got a whole lot of examples. I'm not going to be able to find it right now, but a whole lot of examples, and then you click over the top of them and they have the code like this, but there's more of them. I swear there's way more of them. So that's really useful. And then he's also super responsive on Stack Exchange. If you ever ask a question, he'll find and you tag it with gtsummary, he'll come and find it and he'll answer it for you. It's great. I'm just conscious of the time, and if anybody has any specific questions, I'm more than happy to take them. Otherwise, I can keep demoing random little bits and pieces that I think are useful. Does anybody have anything specific?
Kristy, when you merged the descriptive table with the model table, is it possible to run a series of, say, univariable models and then have the descriptives on the left and then the output on the right?
So UV regression is your function to do that. And it will cycle through all of the columns as the outcome variable, or it will cycle through all the columns of your data set as the predictor variable. So, and it will also include whatever covariates you ask it to include as well. The other thing that I haven't showed you is that this, sorry, let me just sync this again. The TBL regression table had a row for the reference row with a dash, right? You can change what that exactly looks like. You can also use this thing called show single row. So that means if you've got two levels, like male, female, oh, that's a bad example. Say you've got two islands, it will hide the reference row and only give you the row for that variable. It just makes your table much smaller, rather than giving you a whole bunch. So what's going on? I think I've forgotten to do something. My word is hanging. There we go. Okay. Here's our TBL regression, but not the stack one. It was waiting for me to open the Word document. Yeah, so that function TBL under UV regression. And the other thing is that the inline, I'll just push this up to, so I'll add this. My draft report. And push it up as well. So that'll be up on the GitHub now. Here we go. Here's the Word document. So you can turn the warnings off as well if you want, but sometimes the warnings are actually informative. This one's telling me there's actually 11 people that are missing data. So what do you want to do with them? Maybe have a think about that. It's a pretty reasonable warning. But yes, you could get rid of the reference row for this. And so you see species I didn't actually put in the summary stats table, and I didn't put, oh no, species, I relabeled it. That's why it hasn't merged. I have to label them similarly, otherwise they get confused. So that's easily rectified if you go back to the code and I drop. Actually, it's probably just easier to add the label code. Yeah. And close that bucket. Now they'll match up, but bill length doesn't make sense because it's in the model, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, now they'll match up because it was thinking that they're different. And then I'll just, you can say something like this as well. So males are probably better to just say. Did I put gender in my model? Yes, I did. So males are on average, the LM model, the gender variable, the male level, and what I want it to spit out is the estimate with millimeters after it, and then 95% confidence interval, the conf low / conf high. You can write functions for this, make it a lot more readable once you know what you're trying to do multiple times. And then this code spits out the p-value for you. So yeah, there's a whole lot of flexibility there. Yeah. Is there anything else anyone would want to see? I might just quickly tell you about all the functions. So there's TVL summary that we talked about, and that has some add functions to it. So you can add the p-value, add Q, does a multiple comparison adjustment if that's something that you'll need to do. You can add the overall column. You can add a difference column, which is a difference between the groups, which is super useful, with a confidence interval as well. You can add number columns, like the n columns to the side rather than I did it as a row. You can add confidence intervals, add specific statistical labels or summary statistics, like a C statistic if you're doing a model. You can add lots of different things, and then footnotes as well. There's also TVL cross to do a crosstab, your quintessential crosstab. I did used to use janitor, now I use gtsummary. TVL continuous is summarizing continuous variables. I haven't used it an awful lot. I haven't used these two new ones. I don't really do much like it, summary data. I tend to plot it. I'd use this a lot. So if you do survival analyses, ServFit will be your best friend. You can get it to spit out particular time points like 1 year, 6 months, 2 years, etc., whatever you want. I don't use any of the survey design, so I can't talk about them, sorry. And I've used custom summary a couple of times, I wouldn't recommend getting into it unless you have played a lot with the other tables. But yes, TBL regression is my favorite. And yes, you can add glance table, which is model statistics as well. So it will spit out like the BIC, the AIC, the C statistic, etc., depending on what type of model you have. And it deals pretty much with most models, even models that I was surprised have helper functions already written by someone to be able to plug and play with TBL regression. So that's really cool. And then the inline reporting, the output types, and the merging. So TBL strata is also another really cool way of doing a table by a variable. So you saw we did the table by gender, but if you wanted to do it by gender over time, then you would have two variables that you want to do by, right? And that's where TBL strata comes into play. Yeah, but if you would like to know more, I would really recommend to have a look around on gtsummary, have a look at the help pages, and those slides as well are really, really useful. They're quarto slides as well, so they're interactive. Yeah. I might stop there and I'll push this code up to GitHub in case anybody wants.
I had a question.
Mm.
So you know the helper functions, can you write your own custom helper functions?
Yeah, you can, so you saw that inline and then it has a pattern thing of what you want it to come out. You can write whatever pattern you want it to be. So one of those patterns was just the p-value. The other pattern was the estimate and the confidence interval. That can be in any glue type pattern that you could think of. Yeah.
Oh,
If
cool,
you're
cool.
familiar with glue. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's all right. Yeah. So I used to use SAS a lot, and in SAS I had functions written for continuous variables and functions written for categorical variables, and I would need to run it for each variable that I wanted to summarize, and then I would need to stick them all together, and then I would need to put it into a table, and then I'd need to put it in Word. So this is just blown my mind how it's now like 3 or 4 lines of code, or a bit more if I want to get fancy.
Have you pretty much converted over to this from using, say, other packages like Janitor or I don't know?
Still use Janitor for
Table
clean names.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to get away from clean names. It's like stock standard. But yeah, all of my summary tables are using this, or they're custom written functions because I'm like butchering things together. I think I could actually use TBL summary, TBL butcher or something like that, that custom one. But at the moment, I've got it working the way that I have it working. But the way, if you use per to do multiple models at all, and then you per them out to a list, you just have to stick that list into TBL stack or TBL merge, and it's automatically going to output them into a cool like summary function. So it's pretty powerful.
Oh, that's really cool. I just had to do that the other day, so I'm going to try that tomorrow.
Yeah, so I like purred to do a whole lot of fancy models, and then I just went to the end of the function and went TBL regression.
Oh my gosh.
Exponentiate equals true. And then once I had that big list of things, I just put it into TBL stack, whatever I save the output as, and it just immediately came through. So then I just needed to play with the headings and that was it. Yeah, it felt very smart and efficient.
It's really cool.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Thank you so
Well.
much, Kristy. That was really, really informative. And yeah, we appreciate you going through that and demoing all of the different functions. I'm sure a lot of us are going to be using this package now.
Is it publication ready? Yes, it is. Definitely publication ready. And as I mentioned, if you know you're going to JAMA or New England or something like that, you can put it straight into that format using the themes. All right. Okay, well, I might sign off.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank
Kristy.
you.
Yeah, I'm reluctant that I've been getting very rusty and so I'm really glad for you going through all this and making me feel a little less like an idiot as we go through it all.
No, and like everything, the more you use it, the more familiar it comes, right? So you kind of have to get in it and get lost and then find your way out again.
And find yourself on your way out.
Yeah. Well, it's really useful most of the time. Sometimes it gives you a red herring, but most of the time it's pretty good. All right.
Thanks again, Kristy.
No
Thank you
worries.
so
Have a good
much.
night. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.